Litmus test on that. Fuck you, boycott, delete.
Yeah.
And it's like, read the history of boycotts. Which ones are good and which ones are like, you weren't gonna buy that shit anyway.
I'm angry about willful ignorance. I am angry about throwing away data that we have applied intellectual power for a reason. I am tired of the rejection of intellectualism or deciding that intellectual people are elitist or somehow they think better than you. Maybe they are. They know things, and you should try to know things about something. Forcing yourself to bring us forward. It's never going to end up with a positive result. Maybe they are. They know things, and you try to know things.
Back on the Young Turks, Jenkins, and you guys. Joshua Capo Basin. Anna is bae every single day.
Oh my God, thank you.
That's very nice. John Connor writes in, I'm thinking Anna Kasparian's dressed for a later function. Hashtag good luck TYT. Hashtag TYT for Streamies. Oh.
Yes, I am. A lot of people are commenting on my hair. Thank you for the nice comments, but don't get used to it because this took way too much time to do. Someone was like, oh, his hairstylist needs a raise, which means me.
Oh, okay, all right, yes. Well, we do many jobs here. Yes, we are gonna go, like I said earlier in the show, we're gonna present for a storyteller, which is kind of cool. I'm not sure I've ever presented for an award before.
Neither have I.
And then we're up for show of the year.
Who also kneeled during the national anthem. And this whole story came about when an activist approached them and asked if they supported people like Colin Kaepernick. So the officers were approached by an activist named Arleta Clark, who asked two officers whether they were opposed to police brutality and racism.
I'm not sure I've ever presented for an award before.
Neither knelt down in solidarity with Clark, Kaepernick, and the broader message. So that was what you saw in that photo. It was posted on Instagram, went viral, and for the most part got a lot of support. But after enough people saw it, of course, there are going to be some who are opposed to it. And the police department was notified of the image, and they released a statement indicating that these police officers would be reprimanded. Now, I also want to be clear that the department does have a pretty strict policy when it comes to partisan political speech while on duty. They are obviously in uniform, and they made a political statement, and so that's the reason that the department is giving for reprimanding them. Department members are prohibited from participating in any partisan political campaign or activity while on duty, including but not limited to distributing campaign literature or wearing or displaying political paraphernalia. Now, the official statement from the department is as follows. We are aware of the photo and we will address it in the same way we have handled previous incidents in which officers have made political statements while in uniform, with a reprimand and a reminder of department policies.
Okay, so I'm a little split on this. I mean, I get it, they have a policy.
Yeah.
Now, and at the end of the day, it's a reprimand and a reminder of department policies.
Yeah.
They'll live.
No,
okay.
Some people are mistaking that as these officers getting fired. They're not getting fired. Yeah.
Okay. Now, on the other hand, they're not really doing political paraphernalia. It's not like they're saying vote for Bob or Susie or Republican or Democrat. It easily could have been interpreted as not a political statement. And then think about what the statement is. It's against police brutality and their police. I hope that all the cops agree that they're against police brutality. So if that's against your guidelines to be in favor of, to be against police brutality, then I'm a little worried about your guidelines. It's super easy to say that's not a political statement. Of course, we're all against police brutality.
Yes, look, I hate zero tolerance policies. I think that, once you put out a zero tolerance policy in regard to political speech, and you're talking about public officials putting forth a policy that squashes political speech. I mean, I don't know if you can have a debate about whether or not this is protected by the First Amendment. I get the idea, though, that hey, we need to have a policy in place because we might have some police officers who say things that lead to the community further distrusting them, right? Yeah. And so we've had a number of stories where police have said things that were horrible toward the black community or those who have been protesting, and that understandably leads to the community not trusting them. However, in this case, I feel like this is something that should be protected, right? It seems like the only time cops get reprimanded or face a punishment is when they criticize other cops or call out other cops. And I think right now, more than ever, we need the good cops to come forward and be like, you know what? No, we're not going to stand for this. All of these, murders against people who are unarmed, we're not going to stand for this. We got to change the policing. We got to change the training. That's what we've been asking for. And now finally we have these two cops who made a mild statement by kneeling in a photo, and they get reprimanded.
So look, I totally agree with the policy. Well, I don't want a cop showing up in a MAGA hat, right? I also don't want a cop showing up with a "I'm with her" sticker. Okay, or even a Bernie So Punk t-shirt, which you can get at shoptyt.com. But because what if some people are made uncomfortable? They weren't with her, or it's a very wealthy house, and they wrongly are made uncomfortable by Bernie Sanders, and they're not sure the cop is on their side. We can't have it. Totally agree that you should leave politics out of it. But Kaepernick taking a knee and doing, raising their fist, and all the players now doing it, and even some of the NFL owners doing it, are not saying we're against cops. They're not saying we're against any race, certainly, right? They're saying we want to make sure that everybody's treated equally, and that we don't have police brutality. Especially if you're police, you gotta agree with that message.
Right.
And so, and the last thing is that a lot of people have a wrong impression of cops. They think, for example, we're gas. That's crazy. We talked about it a million times. We want better training for cops because there are cops, and we want them to protect the community, all of the community, and we want them train better to do that so they don't shoot as quickly, et cetera, right? And then some on the right think, oh, the cops don't like you guys. I'm sure it's true for some of the cops, but that's actually not at all true for a lot of the cops. I know from my personal life, I mean, cops are shouting out at me all the time, but not in that way. No, so, and they'll be like, hey, Young Turks, hey, I watched your show, hey, keep going. DC, in New York, in LA, in DC when I got arrested for civil disobedience, get my politics. As I was going to do the paperwork, one of the cops was like, Young Turks, keep it going. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want him going to somebody else's house and saying that because that would be political, right? But so not all cops are alike. That's a ridiculous way of thinking on either side, right? It's great. I love to see them doing this, saying we're against police brutality. I wish the department was a little bit more understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And one comment in regard to cops liking us or not liking us. It's not our job to care about cops like us, right? It's our job to do the best we can with these stories and be honest with you guys, give you the facts. But I have a tremendous amount of respect for the cops that watch the show, see some of the criticisms that we've had in regard to police training, and they've been receptive to it and understand. So much love to them. All right, moving on to something completely different. College basketball drama, that's what's happening right now. Bribes, corruption, a lot of shady dealings, and apparently a bunch of people have been charged in a federal corruption case. Let me give you the details. The people implicated in this case involve coaches at Auburn, Oklahoma State, Arizona, and Southern California, and they were all accused of accepting bribes in exchange for offering to steer players to preferred financial advisors, business managers, and agents. Now, the attorney who is, essentially investigating this case had a press conference where he kind of specified, the way of these. I want to just quickly show you that video, and then I'll fill in the blanks.
Coaches, top programs, soliciting and accepting cash bribes. Managers and financial advisors circling blue chip prospects like coyotes, and employees of one of the world's largest sportswear companies secretly funneling cash to the families of high school recruits. In all, we have charged 10 people in 3 separate complaints. 4 college basketball coaches, 3 people associated with professional managers and advisors, and 3 with ties to the major sportswear company, including its global marketing director for basketball. These men allegedly participated in two different but related schemes. In the first, college coaches took cash bribes from managers and advisors in exchange for directing players and their families to those bribers. In the second scheme, managers, advisors, and those affiliated with the sportswear company worked together to funnel money to families of some of the country's top high school recruits, upwards of $100,000, for the players' commitment to play for the schools sponsored by that company.
Okay, so that's what's going on. Keep in mind that these players are not allowed to get paid while they're in college. They're not considered professional athletes. This whole situation is frustrating because a lot of people make a lot of money off of these athletes. They're not allowed to make any money. And then there is, this shady stuff going on behind the scenes to try to ensure that the talented players go to these specific universities, and that they sign with specific brands, in this case, Adidas. A top Adidas executive and 2 associates were accused of arranging illicit payments for high school stars and their families to secure athlete commitments to Adidas schools.
So first reaction is really to find out the Justice Department still working. So it's not in regards to busting the players or even the coaches, but there was a company involved, Adidas.
Yeah.
And they actually did an investigation and got them. And look, even under Obama, that didn't happen that often, or not as it should have. And under Trump, we just did a story yesterday where it was in regards to banks and not sneaker companies, but they were basically like, we're just going to let them police themselves.
Right.
So when you see the Justice Department doing a good investigation, finding out something going wrong, bribery, and actually doing something about it, I felt like, yes, okay, a little bit of justice. And it's amazing how lucrative these deals are, because in just one of the incidents, an assistant coach got $91,500 to direct the players to a financial advisor. So that financial advisor is going to make so much more off those later that the $91,000 is a small percentage to give, and that was just one of the bribes to that guy. So there's a lot of money at stake here, which then finally leads me to the point that Anna was making, which is that it's outrageous that they're not making money in the first place, which leads to problems like this.
Right.
Because there's so much money to be had here that if you bottle it up and you make it illegal, it's going to just flow out in terms of bribery, et cetera. So look, I know what a lot of guys think. What difference does it make? They're going to go to the NBA and make millions anyway. No, not all of them. So the NCAA's profit and the college profit and CBS and all the other networks profit from all their playing, and only a small percentage of those guys make it to the NBA. Those guys provide entertainment and didn't get paid anything for it. The scholarships are great, wonderful, but it's not the salaries that they could have gotten if it was a professional sport. And even for the guys who make it, some of them get injured.
Right.
So they spent their best years in college and they never get paid for it.
Exactly. So many people are making money off